So, in my coverage of chapter 1148, I say that Summers is being dismembered and cut up the middle by a new expression of Conqueror's HAKI being used by Scopper Gaban. However, what Scopper Gaban is most likely using is not a new expression of Conqueror's HAKI. It's going to be something that's going to be further explained that we've seen before. Where we've seen this before is actually at the end of Egghead. Spoilers for Egghead. But at the end of Egghead, Emmett, the giant robot, takes out a wind knot imbued with Joy Boy's HAKI. And once that wind knot is untied, a big gust of wind HAKI, I guess, is expelled. But this HAKI is also Conqueror's HAKI, and it sends all the elders that were not transported to Egghead via conventional means back to Mary Joie, along with canceling out all of their Devil Fruit abilities. So, what do I think this means? Well, first of all, the summoning that Saturn does in order to bring the other 4 elders to the island is probably through a Devil Fruit ability, most likely Eames' Devil Fruit ability, because I think Eam is some sort of deity fruit user, much like, say, Luffy or Killingham, in which they have an ability that allows them to then grant other abilities to other individuals, most likely those individuals who have made some sort of pact with them. This is also why some of them seem to be able to regenerate. Now, the regeneration gets a little tricky because in the case of the elders and with Gunko, I think that's more so to do with their own personal Devil Fruit abilities than the Devil Fruit blessing granted to them via Eam, but that remains to be seen. The reason why I say all that is because back in Impel Down, we were told that awakened normal Zoans can regenerate. So if normal failed awakened Zoans can regenerate, even though that regeneration is more of like super endurance, but still, if they are said to be regenerating, then that would mean that a properly awakened mythical Zoan should have a higher tier of regeneration, which is why what most of the elders do makes sense. I won't really talk about Jupiter because I think he's the only one who's not a mythical Zoan, but we'll have to wait and see what the nature of their abilities are. With that being said, too, in the case of Gunko, I think Gunko is the user of a special paramecia because I can't help but to notice that the arrow fruit in the way that it's used is a very similar fruit to that of the mochi fruit belonging to Charlotte Katakuri. So they could operate in very similar ways in that they both hide within perhaps a projection of their body created by their generated substance in order to dodge attacks. And maybe she too is using observation HAKI to see into the future so that she can safely avoid attacks, because it doesn't look like she's made of flesh and bone when Usopp blows her up. It looks like she's made out of cloth in the way that she regenerates. So most likely this is the case. This is also seen a little bit with Trable, in which he could hide in a big body of mucus. His technique, however, is severely unpolished compared to Katakuri's, but I always bring the two up because he's basically the progenitor of this whole idea of wearing a suit of generated substance that looks like your body. So, with that being said, that's what I think is going on. Scopper Gaban is using a slightly weaker variation of what Joy Boy's HAKI does to the 5 elders back in Egghead. And we're going to have an explanation of exactly how that works and how our boys on the Straw Hat crew can utilize it. The question is now, are others going to utilize this same type of HAKI in the future? I think so, because something is going to have to be set in place to counter Nika. Or there's going to be an explanation as to how Nika was defeated in the first place. And I think this is the answer. So it's a double-edged sword. This is also used to defeat powerful enemies, but this can also be used to defeat people like Luffy. So with that being said, give me your thoughts and tell your friends about Polypede. What's it?